Hey, everybody, this is Travis Kelly and Ryan Tucker with Ag Technologies Podcast. Today, we're just going to be talking about the upcoming season and current state of things and just kind of general conversation. And we have a special guest today also. Look forward to talking with you. Today, we've got Andy Pace with us, our RSM with PTX. And I guess, Andy, if you want to kind of state your name and or I guess your name's already there, but your role and what you're doing currently, and then we can jump into things.
Yeah, thanks, Travis and Brian, for having me on. My name's Andy. As Travis mentioned, I'm the region manager for PTX, both the Trimble and Precision Planting brands in the Southeast U.S.
Okay. Well, Andy's been with us a long time through our precision planting journey, and we're happy to have him on our Trimble side. Also, now he knows the area really well. Been in the industry a really long time, and been in the precision ag space a really long time. So we're glad to have him. We didn't have to learn too many new introductions with our team changes here, transitioning into the PTX segment. And I guess just to rehash, we've talked about this a number of times, but just to kind of go back over what's kind of transpired over the past year or two. AGCO originally already owned precision planting for the past few years. We've been a dealer throughout that whole time. It's been a good transition from what we've dealt with, and Andy's been with us along the way that whole time. And we are also a Trimble dealer, primarily, that we've been for so many years now. And since AGCO has taken over the majority ownership of the Trimble Ag division, now they're all under the same umbrella. So Andy is a product of bringing together some of those resources to help make sure the dealers in the regions have what they need to get through things day to day and season to season. And that's what we've got going into this next season. So we're happy to have this set up, and pretty easy transition for us. I know it's a little bit more for Andy to learn and all the other people that are learning things and support and all those things. But so far it's been good from our end. So we're glad to have this opportunity just to kind of talk on a few items going into this next season and getting out of this season. And I know we were just talking downstairs a few minutes ago about we've still got some guys digging peanuts and are picking peanuts and trying to finish up the season. And you can kind of tell they're getting ready to be in the short rows. And I know some of the season decisions or next season decisions are getting kind of held up by this season's, I don't want to say frustrations, but just anticipation of ending of this season. We still got a lot of cotton in the field too, which the cotton looks really good is the only thing. Cotton, I mean, I've heard, I don't know what y'all have heard. I guess Brian and Andy, y'all can chime in. I've heard some really good numbers. I know the east side of the state has had some really good numbers on cotton this year, and it just looks really good. I mean, I hate to say insult to injury in some ways on that, but it's a strong industry for our strong crop for our area, and we really hope some way it can bounce back. But these producers seeing good yields is a great start. At least it's better than bad prices and bad yields. So what have y'all seen across the areas y'all been in?
I mean, I can say at least anecdotally around our place, kind of central South Georgia, it's one of the best cotton crops I've seen in a long time, actually. Which was, I was a little worried with the cotton jacid and some of the things that they were happening this season, but it looks to be a very good cotton crop. Like you said,
yeah.
I hate to say almost insult to injury, but with the prices as they are, but the crop itself looks really good.
Right.
Yeah, farmers are price takers, not price makers. So kind of deal the cards you're dealt with there. But as Travis said, I'd rather have a really good crop and any year, whether it's good or bad prices. But I think across the board, I've heard a lot of good numbers with cotton this year. really all the crops. It's the South, so you're always going to have a pocket of drought or some other environmental factors that you've got pockets that aren't as good as others. But I covered the entire southeastern U.S. pretty much, and there aren't a lot of places that just had a completely bad crop or what they consider to be a bad year. So we have been blessed in that regard. And of course, hurricanes haven't taken us out so far.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we talked about that the other day. I think this is the first year we haven't had some sort of a natural disaster in I don't know how long. So that's a big plus. So I know we were kind of talking about earlier, kind of what we wanted to go through on this episode, and I would say, we've talked about it a few times recently, and just thinking about our planning for this next season, and just I guess kind of recapping this season what we've seen too. I'll just kind of open it up on what y'all's thoughts are on going into this next season, or what y'all have seen from this season, and what we want to help provide for growers, or what y'all are seeing growers talk about. I know I've heard a lot of guys talking about changing different crops, changing row patterns. I mean, we just talked about one a few minutes ago. Some of that's due to equipment changes. Some of that's due to obviously market prices and guys just trying new things. We've seen some ways that we can help step in with guys are changing. There might be somebody picking up a sweet corn crop that's wanting to go 30-inch row, got a new planter they're wanting to retrofit, or whatever it might be, just be more efficient to get across some acres. But we're trying to focus on things that are going to help these guys either get into another crop, get into a different row pattern, get into something that just helps them keep moving forward, be efficient, hopefully make them some money here and there. What are y'all's takeaways, I guess, on what y'all seen from this season, and then going into this coming season, what we could try to provide, or what y'all have heard? And it might not even be our product, just saying in general, what's some things y'all have seen equipment wise too?
And Andy, I'll let you go first on that one.
Yeah, I think we were talking earlier, from an equipment perspective, obviously in the economic environment we're in, maintaining what you've got is first and foremost. And if you have a change, either a new crop or a new row configuration, something like that, you're looking at something that on that operation necessitates that change, then looking at the technology that can go on that piece of equipment that's going to give you the quickest payback. And so, I think first and foremost for me, always, even in good times or bad economically, is maintenance of what I've got first and foremost and top of mind for me. And so I think you guys do a great job of planter inspections, looking at the wear parts on those units, going through the meters and the technology that's on there, making sure that's up to snuff, and software is updated, and the meters have been run, say in a planter situation, or on sprayers that, the poppets and springs. Brian and I were talking about that earlier with one particular customer, and checking with them on that, on a PWM nozzle system. So those little things are what's gonna pay you back the most money, the technology you've already invested in. So that's top of mind for me, especially in a year like this, is to be going through that maintenance checklist, or having some professionals like you come in and take a look at, put another set of eyes on it and make sure everything's up to snuff and ready to go, because those little things are what adds up to yield.
Yep, I'm right there with you. And like I said, I know we were just talking about it just a few minutes ago, but really this time of year, just focusing on that maintenance, making sure what you got is in the best condition that it can be. And then, we've had some really good conversations. Some people that are getting a little more optimistic. We've had the conversations about upgrading planters and kind of taking it to the next level with the technology. But yeah, really focusing on, let's make sure we come in, we have the maintenance, and let's run those meters. Let's make sure what you got is working properly. And I know, like our guy that's up in North Carolina, he's been on me. He's super excited about the new depth adjustment assemblies from Precision. Going around, let's make sure that guys are planting at the right depth and they're consistent across the planter. Just anything like that this time of year, that's really, really kind of what's top of my mind.
Explain that. Explain that. I'm sorry, Andy. Tucker, explain that depth adjustment, because I know we hadn't talked about that yet, and we keep forgetting to bring that up. And I know that's kind of a wear part thing, but I don't know why we haven't talked about it more lately, but having that extra ability to have a little bit more finite adjustments can explain what that tool is.
Yeah, and I'm glad Andy's on here. He can fill in where I might misstep. But essentially, this isn't a smart piece. This is something that can be added to any planter. The specific thing about John Deere planters here, where on a normal depth adjustment assembly on the T handle back there, you can change the depths by a 1/4 inch at a time. But it's depending on the mustache, on the gauge wheel arm wear. Not every setting is going to be the same across the planter. Essentially, what this allows you to do is you can come and put all your T handles at the same level. There's like in a 3-4 position or whatever depth you're trying to get to. You can set all those T handles in the same position, and then it gives you the ability to adjust within that setting. I believe it's at 1/10 of an inch at a time. So you can really fine tune your depth on each row, as well as have all of the T handles in the same position, so that you can do a quick visual check throughout the season to make sure that maybe nothing's jumped out or somebody hadn't come by and moved something. So right. It's a good practical way to make sure that we're getting the right depth when we're planting. And Andy, you can add anything to that if there's anything else missing.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's without having a picture up, it's a way to fine tune, adjust, those notches in between a 1/4 of an inch. When you do a traditional, let's say a Deere style, if you want to call it that, gauge wheel depth check, you're going to put a set of blocks down, set it down on it. The blocks are going to need to be thicker than what your planting depth is, but try to set it close to your planting depth, and then go through and adjust with your T handle to try to get each setting the same across the planter. There you go. Look at it.
There's a smart screen there for you.
Yeah. What this little device has is a little stair step on that T handle to where we can fine tune, adjust it. You're not limited to this 1/4 inch notch adjustments between each setting there. And of course, when you're planting a crop like cotton, like we do down here, and we're looking at where that depth adjustment between each notch is a big step, and I want to fine tune it between each one, that gives you a little bit more of an ability to adjust it. And of course, we do have smart depth or automatic adjustment control where we can calibrate each row, especially in our shallow seeded crops. And then from the cab, we can make changes in 1/10 of an inch. And we know that each row is the same. This is kind of a mechanical workaround. If that's not the kind of money we want to spend in 2025, 26, to be able to still fine tune it and not be limited to those notches in between. So it just gives you get in the ballpark with each notch, and then that allows you to sort of fine tune it from row to row. And we found anywhere from an 1/8 of an inch variation across the planter to a 1/4 and 1/2 an inch variation in the same notch position across. And some of that too goes back to your maintenance. If you've got walking gauge wheels on a John Deere XP or ME5, and you've never looked at the mustache or the bolt that holds that mustache on, then I'm going to tell you probably, especially in a 2, 3, 4-year-old planter, have some wear, depending on what kind of operator you got and what kind of field conditions you're in. And so replacing the mustache and the bolt and that whole assembly while we're at it is a good tip or a good thing to do while you're changing out and going to that newer style that we're offering this year. And since Brian opened it up to product and I'm in sales, I've got to mention some of the newer stuff we've got coming out that can help you do a better job for 26. If you're running a Gen 3, and I would hope that most of the ag technology customers listening to this podcast are running a precision planting Gen 3 monitor, we have some new products coming out that are not expensive. It's not a lot of money per row, but I think probably deserve some attention. Number one would be, Brian and I were talking about earlier, we've got a new sensor that we can put in on insecticide. And that's if you're running V-Drive insecticide, our sort of electric drive control over it, or whether you're still, running insecticide off of chains, or, ground drive insecticide, if you've got a Gen 3 2020 with SRMs, we can plug in, just like a seed tube sensor, except it goes on your insecticide. And that's just a little bit over $100 per row to add that sensor in, plugs directly into your can expansion hub there on your planter. And then we can give you a nice, pretty map and chart in the planter and allow you to see the variation per row. And so, we see those boxes empty out at different rates and we're not hitting rate, or, when we're planting cotton and we're using aldicarb, that has a bad tendency, especially if got any kind of moisture. It sits for a day and it rains or something, and you get that little bottom of the hopper just right above where that feed wheel can grab it, and you get that little bit of blockage there, and then you've got rows that aren't actually flowing. So this sensor would allow you to see that, see the variation row to row, and be able to make adjustments and make sure that you're getting the right rate of insecticide out. So I wanted to call attention to that because I think that's if you're an existing Gen 3 customer, if you're looking at a new system, that's a cheap insurance, the way I look at it, and make sure your insecticide's flowing and it's flowing at the right rate.
Definitely. That's a big one that we're looking to push, and we've got a number of guys that have been running essentially those same sensors for a few years, but
Sure.
and they work really well. They just have been having to run them through a separate monitor. So having it come into the Gen 3 is going to make things a lot better. One thing we've been talking about a little bit more too, and just thinking about ways that we can help growers be a little more efficient, and the cost savings, could be there if they use it correctly. But we've been talking about data a little bit more here lately also, and wanting to get in with growers before they get back started for the year. I've had more guys interested in talking about doing some variable rate seed maps, and just trying to, you have this, if you have a precision planter, you have a tool to vary the seed. Like we know that's just built in. So what else can we be doing with the information we have? Do we have yield data? Do we have just historical information of the field just because we've just run it? Whatever it is. And we've been talking about, getting more guys into Panorama so they can get in there, and whether they're just using the knowledge that they have on top of their head, or if they're just, they are going to use yield data, whatever they're going to use, or, last year's seeding data, whatever it might be, just to be able to go in there and start figuring out some ways to, they may not just cut seed rate day one or whatever, but the irrigated, non-irrigated is a really good start. And we've seen some guys have some big savings and not really see any change in yield as far as like going down. So if you can lessen your seed rate, save some money, keep your yield at the same spot, that's a win. So we've talked about that more here lately. Just, guys have been more interested in talking about the data. And I feel like we have these years that go up and down on, I'm not that concerned about yield data. I am concerned about yield data. It just kind of all over the place. But normally it's based off of, is there anything I can do with the yield data after the fact? And if there's not really anything they can do with it after the fact, then obviously they're not going to be very concerned with it. We're still trying to get to where we can get some peanut yield data, that kind of stuff. So it's not really going to help us there right now. But, our corn, cotton, that kind of stuff, we can be looking at that. And if we can go through, we know we got a good variety of cotton seed that we could, we can limit or whatever if we need to, or whatever, and save a little bit. I mean, that stuff's it's not cheap. I mean, when they start charging you per seed on those bags, I mean, it's high. So, anything we can do to help, and you have the tool to limit that or increase it if it's needed for yield purposes or whatever it might be for the soil type. So I guess in the changes that you've seen since Panorama was released, Andy, what would you say would be an appealing thing that would be worth people giving it a look, I guess?
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question. We add features and different components to Panorama every day. And and more to come. As you know, Winter Conference is our big sort of product announcement time in January. And so I would encourage folks, if you can attend a local location, we'll release it onto YouTube probably the week after Winter Conference. But that week of Martin Luther King Day will be our Winter Conference, and there'll be locations, of course, in Illinois and some other spots. But in Panorama, working towards that, we just continue to release new features. The best one from a customer perspective of Ag Technologies is that we have added the ability for Travis or Brian or any of your Ag Technologies folks to, if you're running Panorama live in the cab with a data connection, with a modem or Starlink or something like that, then they can remote into that display and see all of your settings. And I don't want to call anybody out, but if you're that guy that changes over from corn to cotton and you forgot to change what disk you have loaded in the display and you're wondering why you're not hitting population and the metrics look funny, then, Travis or Brian can remote in and go, oh, well, it's, your crop setup's incorrect, and we can get that fixed. As far as data flow, well, I had several people this past year running Panorama sharing coverage. And the difference between what we've had in the past working through other folks and what we have today with Panorama is if I have two tractors running in the same field or even down the road, I can subscribe. So you go in and subscribe to the other tractor, and all of the data layers for that other machine that's planting will be brought into your 2020. And if we have a fast enough data connection, it's almost instantaneous. It's something like Starlink. So if I have two 12 rows planting corn or cotton in the same field or peanuts, whatever we've got, one operator is getting coverage from the other one. So if we're in a clutching situation, I can work off of their coverage and my coverage, but I'm also getting all of the other data layers. So let's say I've got the farm manager, the owner in one tractor, and I got a hired guy or a son or daughter in the other tractor. I'm pulling all those data layers and I'm seeing the performance of both in map form on the Gen 3, just like I planned it myself. I can see population, singulation, spacing, SRI, all those metrics on each one and for each data layer. So I can see downforce, I can see seed data. If I've got smart firmer, I can see that data. If I've got liquid, I can look at all those data layers. So everything is coming back and forth between those two connected tractors that are subscribed to the same field. And we had several people run it this past year that were just tickled to death with being able to look at it. And then it's also going in, of course, to my web application. I can go in on my computer. We've added here recently the ability to create prescriptions. So I don't know if you guys have had time to play with that, but now someone can go in on the web and log into their Panorama account. They can create a prescription for a planter, and they can send that prescription through Panorama and have that ready to go. So, I mean, we keep adding different features and abilities. We have an AI tool within there. So if I've got yield data and planting data and I want to ask AI a question about the performance, I can go in and do that. So it's just, like I say, every day we're adding something different, but those are kind of the highlights of things here lately that we've had good experiences with, and dealers and customers having a lot of positive feedback on.
Okay. Yep. Well, that's kind of in line with what we've been talking about that we're wanting to dig into. We've had more guys talking about throwing two planters out in the same field and needing to share coverage, and then talking with folks about the support aspect of it and the variable rate seed maps, all those kind of things. So hoping this will drive the need for some better yield data coming in this next harvest also, which would be helpful for making decisions for the next season.
And I will say that we do have APIs, which all that means is we do have connections on the back end with some of the other more popular farm data things such as JD Ops Center, Field View, those kind of places. So the data, once it's in Panorama, you can make a connection to your account and those other data tools, and the data will flow, from your planting data, yield data, if you're running yield sense, that kind of thing, flows into those as well.
Right. I guess we'll jump over to the other side for just a minute before we have to wrap up here. I know we've had a fair amount of interest the past little bit. We've had a good many conversations with guys that are trying to make some steps forward with some of their equipment too. And I know we had some as early as this past week, some guys that upgraded some of their guidance systems, and a lot of it was based. I mean, some of these that we're talking about, we're just trying to get on the same page with some of their equipment because they might have been running a mixed fleet. We had some guys that were running some old Trimble screens, and then we had this one particular guy was running old Trimble screens, and then he was running some case OEM guidance also, and was just kind of tired of the back and forth with the data and everything. So we took him up to the 1260s and got AutoSync running on there. So in the vein of talking about the software, really in that situation, I'm not going to say the software fully sold it, but the ease of being able to get data from tractor to tractor and not having to worry about thumb drives and conversion and that kind of stuff, it just made it make sense for this particular grower that I'm talking about. And it's been super smooth. His guys have taken to it really, really easy, even though it's a different interface than they're used to seeing. It was really quick and simple on training. So glad to see that. And then in the same vein, it gives us the opportunity, if we do need to do remote support into their guidance system, we have that option also. So I'm kind of seeing where, and I know y'all probably seen it too, where, people are having to make decisions right now. I've seen people cut back on the amount of machines they've had. Previously, I've seen guys maybe go to some different brand machines, maybe go some older year models, whatever it may be. And that's where we normally can help fit those pieces together where, it might be a guy that's used to running all the same model that have things built in that make them talk and this and that, whatever else, and they just can't go that way anymore. And we can still keep the technology side going for them, even if they have to change what brand tractor it is or whatever. I mean, I know I took a system off of a Deere yesterday that's going to a Massey. I mean, it's just those things people are making decisions and having to just, they're wanting to have the ability to have a choice. And there's some manufacturers in the market right now that are, putting some good options out there. And these guys not feeling like they're stuck in a corner that they can't get out of with their technology. That's where we want to try to help them make sure they know, like when they call and say, hey, do y'all work on a so-and-so? Like, yeah, of course we work on that. And that's where we want to kind of shine in that area and keeping them where at least their technology is familiar and still interacting with other units on the farm and that kind of stuff. So that's one thing that I've been glad to see with some of the guys. We can help make decisions on that when they call and they're asking about what would be a good fit on machinery, and we can tell them, pretty much anything, we can work with you on it.
And I think an important part of that too, Travis, and you can speak to it much better than I can, but in some of those upgrades that have happened, we've upgraded the receiver technology on those tractors or implement, those units. And a lot of the folks that are out there running receivers, they're doing a fine job. But as we see increases in solar flares, as we see being able to give a guy the ability to have more, to see more satellites, I guess to put it as simply as I can, they're getting much better receiver technology than what they've currently got. And I don't know if you want to speak to that or you or Brian, but I think that's a key part too of some of these upgrades is that we're running some older receivers, and the ability to upgrade that technology is giving them more reliable, not that they had bad signal, but more reliable signal, more accurate signal, because we're able to see more satellites. We're able to deal with solar flares. We're able to operate a little bit better on tree lines, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, the Honor Guard in our newer receivers has been really helpful in uptime, just in general. I mean, most people wouldn't even know that it's changed anything, which is a good thing. But I know we've seen some other I mean, we've seen old Trimble systems too. I'm not saying we're immune to it, but I've seen some guys that had been running systems that when that kind of stuff was taking place, instead of the system kick them out and say, hey, you can't run right now, the accuracy just falls off, which to me is much scarier than
Sure.
not, kicking you out. I mean, Trimble's normally always been good about the level of quality. If you're running high accuracy, you're just not going to run unless you're driving by hand. And I would by all means rather somebody make that decision than be calling us and saying, why is my stuff not lining up? It said it was online. And then you can't go back and recreate that if there was a solar flare or whatever going on. So the older equipment, like I said, even some of the Trimble equipment, it's just depending on what accuracy on, if it's running RTK, VRS, RTX, whatever, they may be more susceptible to it. And right now, from what we've seen with the newer receivers and running RTX, there's just constant information going between those units to know, like, this is going to be a bad time of day coming up. You can see 30 plus satellites right now, but you really only need to use 22 of them or whatever it might be. Like, it'll, all that stuff updates to a point to make sure that unit stays running in the field as long as possible, but as accurately as possible. Because like I said, I would rather a unit go into float or go degraded and just stop dead in its tracks than keep driving through a bad time and not be accurate. And then you come back trying to dig peanuts later and you're not on the road. I mean, that's not a fun day for anybody. So historically we've not had those issues. And I think all the changes that we're making in the hardware coming up is going to make sure that we continue that trend, and we're not going to have them in the future also. But we are going to have to look at some of this equipment might be getting to an age that we may have to start having some conversations and, explain why it's not working at this time or whatever it might be. And most of the time we've had some decent information to tell people what's going on, but those new features and the new receivers and all have been very helpful. And with the RTX, it's been really good on uptime, and accuracy also. We've been really pleased with it to date. So, I know we're kind of rounding towards the end of the time slot here. So, y'all got any things y'all want to, I guess, throw out there for just things to be thinking about in the year, going into the planning part of, for next season and that kind of stuff? Y'all got any kind of, I guess, end remarks that y'all'd like to say?
I'd just reiterate where we were saying there at the beginning. Just, I know we're finishing out this crop, but it's not too early to be thinking about getting started for next year. I know whenever we hit January, it's full go towards planting season. So, we'll get busier. Everybody gets busier. Let's go ahead and start thinking about your planters, thinking about your maintenance on those planters, going through that checklist. I know we'll do a little more in depth of a podcast on specific things to look for on maintenance. We'll go ahead and get that one out soon, hopefully. But, go through those maintenance checklists. If you want us to come out and check them, get with us so that we can get a good game plan together and make sure that, we hit the spring as prepared as we possibly can.
No, I would echo what Brian says. And then, we're in the economic situation we're in. You have to look around at technologies that have a quick return on investment. And we haven't talked about it here, but I look at PWM nozzle control, whether it's our system, Symphony, or another one. If you currently own a sprayer and you're holding on to it and it does not have PWM nozzle control, I certainly would take a look at it. When we talk about Symphony, you're looking at true individual nozzle control. We've got turn compensation. You're getting the ability to reduce overlap because you have individual nozzle control. A rule of thumb most people say is go back when Travis is talking about data and look at what your planted acres are versus your sprayed acres. And typically what you're going to find if you run that number out of your data set is going to be that you're somewhere between 3 and 4% of overlap. And I think that's a very conservative number. because when you look at it, that acre is going to be sprayed, right? So a more accurate way to look at it for me is to look at your planted acres and then look at your sprayed acres by product applied. So if I was supposed to spray 2 totes of Roundup in my burn down and I sprayed 2.5, then that's telling me that, I actually sprayed more acres than what I'm showing, right? Because it's how much product went out. And so what we find there is if I compare the amount of product I bought to cover an X number of acres, and I look at the amount of planted acres, you're probably going to be over somewhere in that 8 to 10% range. And so when you look at going to individual nozzle control and just simply reducing overlap in certain situations, if you've got odd shaped fields, we're going to be saving product. We're going to be we're going to be better stewards of those products and those chemistries and protecting those. And frankly, because I'm separating pressure, I'm able with the PWM nozzle control system to set a given pressure. My spray pattern is going to be more consistent. I'm going to get a more consistent application of that product on whatever situation I'm in, whether it's a herbicide, an insecticide, a fungicide. And so I'm again going to be a better steward of that product. And then I'm going to get the right rate put out every time because we're separating we're not a pressure based system and we're not a rate or flow controlled system. So we're able to control both flow and pressure and do a better job getting that product applied. So, when I look at payback, I think a technology like PW nozzle control, again, whether it's ours or somebody else's, is a good technology to look into. For ours, we have the ability to scale that system. If you wanted to add cameras, we have the ability to do that if you're looking to do that going forward. So it's kind of a stair-step system where I can get into PWM nozzle control today. I can go to cameras and open up that world of scouting and everything else. Individual weed spot spraying. I can get into adjusting rate control, as in flexing a rate up or down based on weed pressure with that camera. And so it adds a lot more capabilities.
So I know here in our core area in Georgia and up into South Carolina, we're going to be having some demos here this winter of what that looks like. So if it's something that you've never seen before or would like to see or see how our system works specifically, that's something we're going to be out on the road with. So we'll be putting out some dates and times on when we'll be doing those demos.
Well, I think just to kind of wrap it up, like we said, we're here to answer any questions about things as people are making decisions going into the next season or wrapping up this season or trying to see where we can do better. Let's see if we can make next season better than this one, was. And, right now I think everybody's pretty pleased with a lot of things as far as yield goes, but, let's just see if we can do it better next season. And I would say if you're a sweet corn farmer, please let us know soon because that's going to
Yes.
be coming upon us really, really quick. So anything like that, we want to help where we can. We definitely got some time towards the end of the year, but we all know it's gonna come at us real fast and in a hurry here shortly. So unless you guys got anything else to add, we appreciate the time. Andy, we appreciate you jumping on with us. And we'll be glad to jump into a new season, and we'll be back hopefully in a week or so. We know we got Thanksgiving coming up, but we hope everybody has a great holiday if we don't talk with y'all before. And y'all be safe, and we'll be talking with y'all on the next episode. Thank y'all.
Thank you.